Hello and welcome to Dice Tabletop. My name is Chris, and in this episode we are finally getting everything that we need to get done on the Warlord Titan so that we can move on and start painting. I thought that this video was going to be a bit longer than what it turned out to be. I trimmed out a lot of fat during the editing process. So what we've got here and what we're going to start off with is we've got the reactors that go into the top of the carapace. That's what I'm just taking up the bag there. There's going to be some adjustment that's going to be needed to get these to fit properly. They also need some trim up on them as well. The next thing that we're going to be taking a look at then as well is doing the hip pistons. These connect underneath and connect the waist to the hips themselves. You'll find out a little bit later on I got a bit of trouble with these, and one of the things that delayed this build was I had to come and print some new ones. You won't see that in this video, but they're going to be ready and on the model by the time we come to paint it. So let's get started with these reactors. This is the body itself. It's just so big. You can see there that I've covered up the drainage holes that I made the mistake of putting on the front with some metal sheeting. That was the same one that I used to hold the wire in place inside the carapace. So what we're going to need to do is these don't fit in properly. We're going to need to enlarge the holes themselves. So for that we're going to go back to the trusty rotary tool with a diamond tip bit where you just come along and make sure we're not taking away too much plastic at any one time. We want a really nice snug fit with these. So lots of trial and error, measuring, making sure it's right first time. And once it's in place, it's all ready to be glued, and we can carry on and get all the others done. These were nice and simple and didn't take me long to do at all, and it adds so much character to the top of that carapace. So moving on now, we are going to be doing the hip pistons. So these are all in 3 pieces. There is a knuckle that goes onto the waist part, then there is a receiver for the piston itself that then goes onto the outside hip. What I need to do is make adjustments on basically all 3 of these pieces to get them to fit in and be all nice and snug. So, after a lot of trial and error, I finally got one I was happy with. Now, I used Loctite all-purpose adhesive to glue these together. What that did was give it enough stick that I could put them all into place and then push them, maneuver them, get them exactly how I wanted them, and leave them, set it and forget it. Super glue, it dries far too quickly for this, and the level of adjustment that you need just to get it right, it would have ruined these pistons. So now it's just the painful task of going through and getting all of these adjusted. So there's quite a lot of plastic that I need to remove off the bottom here that I've figured out. When I've removed all of this, I could get this then nice and flush, and it would sit neatly on the inside. That way then I'm not using the internal guide. Because I've got the legs set at a weird angle, I need to break that internal guide to make sure that it can move freely and I can position it where it needs to be. Once I was happy I could get that in the position that I needed it to, it was a matter of trimming down the sides of this internal receiver just so that it fitted snugly into that little knuckle part that goes onto the waist. I tried to not trim off too much plastic so I could keep a bit of friction inside that joint. That all helps when it comes to positioning and getting it all glued together. So happy with that, the next thing I need to do is slightly enlarge the inside receiver to take the pin. And once that was able to fit in neatly, I could assemble it all and begin to figure out just how much of the pin I would now need to take away so that it fitted perfectly into that ball joint receiver. Now that I've gone ahead and done all the adjustments on these pieces that I need to, I can loosely put them into place just to make sure it all goes rightly together. Once it does, I come in with the adhesive, putting a little bit just over everything. And as you can see, this provides just enough stickiness that they're not all falling apart as I try and maneuver them, but I can also then push the pin out, set that little receiver in the middle into the knuckle, and get it all looking nice and neat. So this is an issue that I did have. Because of the way that I positioned the legs, they stick out quite a bit more on the bottom side of it. So what I have needed to do is print a few more of these pistons. As I say, you're not going to see this in this video, but by the time that we come to paint the model, these will all be done. So that ticks off another big part of getting this build finished. That was really fiddly to get done. Did take me quite a while to do all the little touch-ups and adjustments that I needed to, but I'm super happy now with how this turned out. So moving on, the next is going to be these knee shin part armor receivery bits. This is where the actual knee armor itself connects onto, as you can see there. So there doesn't need to be too much adjustment done to these. We're probably going to just enlarge that receiving hole like we did with the reactors. using the rotary tool, and just a matter of trial and error getting this perfectly to the right size. Once that fitted in and was all snug, popped a bit of glue on it, pushed it into place, and that was another part done. Just time to move on and get the other 3 fitted. So with the first one done, it's time just to have a little test fit to make sure that these do fit on properly. And look at that, this is starting to come together. It was just a matter of repeating the same process now on the other side to get the other knee joint done. And there we have it, another thing that we're ticking off, ever getting closer to moving on to this paint job. And the next thing that we're going to be moving on to is magnetizing all of the armor. So when I first started to think about making this model, what I really wanted to do was have it interchangeable between Chaos and Imperial. All the Titans that you see out there are just one faction. I want to have this hot swappable between the two. So I spent a long time trying to figure out how I was going to do this, and what I came up with was some thin 1mm steel sheeting, some really small button style magnets. What I'm going to do is I'm going to trim small parts off this steel sheeting, connect these to attachment points on the body, then on the armor panels I'll drill holes, put magnets in, and theoretically then we should just be able to pop all of these panels on and off. It took me a really long time just to come up with what is such a basic idea to get this done, but I don't think I've actually seen many people doing that type of magnetization with Titans. So if you like this idea, give it a try. It's worthwhile. I mean, it worked really well for me in the end here. So it was a matter now we need to go over the model and the armor panels, try and figure out the exact positions of where we're going to need to place all of these. So in order to do that, I needed to test out exactly what my method was going to be of drilling these magnet holes. The first thing I experimented with is this sort of diamond little grinding bit. It was just the basic perfect size of the magnets. So if I was able to create a hole straight down with this, theoretically it should be about the same size of the magnet, and I should be able just to push it in. This worked somewhat well. It was a little bit too big in the end. Magnets were falling in and out of it, but I'm on the right lines. I'm starting to sort of come together and see that this idea might just work. So with a little bit more trial and error, I went through now with all the little attachments that I've got for this rotary tool, trying to figure out exactly what is going to be the best tool to get me the most repeatable results each time, because the size of these magnets don't change. What is going to change is me, the human element, messing up. So what can I use that's going to give me the most consistent results to get these magnets in? And what I ended up coming up with was just using the simple drill bit. It was a bit smaller than the magnet, so what I was able to do then is create a small hole, an accurate hole, and then gently just increase the size of that bit by bit. And finally, as you can see here, I was able to push a magnet straight into it, and it stays in. So now what I need to do is replicate this across all of the armor panels. This ended up being a mammoth task, but the proof of concept is here. This is working. Friction fit, of course, wasn't just going to be enough, so I went around then and just another little test how it was going to respond to being glued in. I didn't use the super glue with this. I also went back and used the Loctite adhesive again. This is just because it dries a bit slower. It does give me this little bit of extra leeway in case something does go wrong. I'm not dealing with something that's stuck to the plastic, whereby if I try and remove a stuck magnet, it could potentially crack a bit of plastic, and then I need to reprint a part or something. Confident now with my magnet idea, it's time to move on and figure out where I'm going to attach these steel platings onto the Titan. So, starting off with these ankle supports, I first place them into position, and there it's going to tell me where the contact point is going to be at the top of that support. Once I know where that is, I come in and just make a simple mark on that using a drill. This way, so long as I know that I'm covering that part with a little bit of steel, that it's going to be in the correct point for where my magnet is going to be. With all those marks made, now it is time to cut off some of these steel plating that will go inside it. So to do this, you can't use any ordinary snippers. No, it is thick metal, so we're going to have to come in here with some aviation snips. These are really cheap on Amazon. This whole setup as well wasn't necessarily expensive. I think the steel cost me, I think it was £5 to £8 for 6 sheets. I only ended up using one for this entire model. The snips, I think they were about £8 to £10, and then the magnets themselves, they weren't expensive. They were only about £5 to £6 as well. So with a small piece cut off, I used a magnet just to help place it onto the model, and there we have it. Now we've got a contact point of where the magnet will attach on the other side, and now that I know where that is, I can come in with the drill, create my hole for the magnet. As you can see there, start off small, make it slightly larger as we need to, so we get that nice perfect snug fit. And that goes in there, snug as a bug. Perfect contact point. With one done, we now need to go and get the other 7 complete. Next, it was time to move up the model, and we starting off here with those knee points, just putting a little bit of metal on there so that they'll be able to pop on and off with the shin pads. As I'm going up and around the rest of the torso, it was a lot more clear where the points needed to be. The ankle joints, because they were all at different angles due to where the feet are positioned, we have to sort of measure all of these up and set them in very specific points, whereas as you can see here, moving up the legs and the rest of the torso, we can be a lot more blanket, putting larger parts of metal in. Now, I did end up cutting myself while I was doing this on the metal sheets. They are very sharp after you've cut them, so be careful doing this. That unfortunately did set me back about another week as well while that was all healing up. So the contact points as well, we're going to need to put these on the shins. This is where the head is going to attach onto. What I ended up doing is coming back, I found that this wasn't suffice to hold the head in place, so I came back later on, put a little bit more metal on. So here it is. This is what the rest of the body now looks like with all of these contact points completed. Now with all the contact points completed, we need to go and add all of the magnets onto these parts as are going to attach onto them. So as you saw earlier, I've already done one as a test. Now we're just going to go ahead and replicate that across the rest of these. This was a fairly simple process, like always, with just making that hole, then enlarging it, taking our time, ensuring that we're not blowing through too much plastic at once so we can get a nice snug fit with all of those magnets, gluing them in place so they're not going to go anywhere. There we have it. These are all done, and I've done a little test fit off camera, and they're all looking good. Right, next up is moving on and magnetizing more of the armor panels. Now, many of these are in multiple different sort of shapes, recesses, curvatures. So what I needed to do was come up with a way that I could get a magnet into an awkward sort of place or angle and have it actually stick in the hole that I've made instead of either pulling it away or getting stuck to my finger or something else. So what I did to do that is I just bent a piece of metal at a 90-degree angle, attached the magnet to that. I was able to use that to get into the tight place. With a skewer, I pushed the back of the metal just to give it a little bit of force, and that recessed nicely. So it was a matter now of going over and doing this on all of the armor panels. This was the longest part of getting this entire model done. It was a lot of time to get all of the metal bits attached to the body that these magnets are going to attach onto, but by God, this took a while. Something I discovered after this is that I had to go back and double up some of the magnets in some areas just to increase the strength. With all of the armor finally magnetized, that was a mammoth job, we can move on and get all these toe armor done. These are 2 pieces. We're going to need to adjust the little receiver on the foot first, as well as then on the actual toe armor itself, where that piston slots onto the top. We're going to have to do some adjustment there. So this was a matter of coming in with the rotary tool. Thankfully, the bit that I had was just perfectly sized to fit straight into that toe hole. Made that all nice and round, and the pin fitted in snugly. Then we were trimming down the sides of this pin really slowly. I wanted a nice little sort of push fit onto these so that every time they are hot swapped, the pin is not going to fall out and is going to just sort of run away on the tabletop somewhere. These are too fiddly for me to magnetize, so the way that I want to do to make these removable is I'm going to glue the pin in at a set angle. Then I'll know that every time that I take, it doesn't matter what piece of toe plate on and off on the same piece, it is always going to go and land in the exact same position as I swap in between the Chaos and the Imperial armor panels. So after trimming these all down to size, put a little bit of glue around that piston ring as I mentioned. This is going to enable that just to dry firm in place. Now, it was really crucial here just to spend a little bit of time making sure that this was exactly in the perfect fit, because once it's set, we can't forget. With that done, 7 more to go. With all of those pins now dried in place, you can see much better what I'm on about in terms of how these toes are hot swappable, and they will always land back in the exact same position every time you take them on and off. Due to the awkward nature of those pins, I don't think there was a real way that I was going to be able to get a magnet in there as easily and repeatable, so this was a much better process and is still just as firm. There was one that I had to leave blank, however, due to the way that I position the foot and the way that the shin armor plate comes down. Once it's attached, it actually sort of cuts off all access for you to be able to put a piece of toe armor on there. Thankfully, it doesn't really show too much. The shin plate there covers it, as well as the way that it leads into the devilfish. You really don't notice that it's not attached, but there really is just no room, unfortunately, to get one in. I did have a little try and a wiggle about to see if I could do it with or without a piston, but as you can see here, by trying to just loose fit one in, it's just no way, and that just doesn't look good, so I've left it out. Now the only thing left to do is build. And here we are. The Titan is nearly ready for painting. This has been such a mammoth journey up until this point. It has been so much fun to get it here, and I cannot wait now to start getting some paint on this and to really bring it to life and to bring it to the next stage. You've probably obviously noticed throughout this that there haven't been any weapons that I've included just yet. So I have got a lot of weapons that can go along with this, and that is going to be an entire different kettle of fish. I've got some great ideas as to what I want to do with those. Get some LEDs in there, carry on and make this the real most epic Warlord Titan, hopefully, that is on YouTube at the moment. So, as always, thank you guys so much for watching and for sticking with this series. Now it is going to really get interesting and really pick up the pace. So if you liked it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much.